Hello and welcome to Hitch API Chat. I'm Luke and I'm here with my co-founder Bruno. We're really glad you could join us again. Today we'll be talking a little bit around what's happening in the API market with an IPO, but also some of the movements around discussion of support and developer relations and how those interact. So Bruno, Mulesoft IPO'd last week. It wasn't quite as sexy as the Snap IPO. Snap is obviously much more of a B2C product, but obviously we're quite interested in the success of an enterprise business like Mulesoft. What is Mulesoft, first of all, for those that don't know, and what value is it actually providing to developers?
Right. Well, the way I see it, Mulesoft is a company that's been operating for quite a while now. I would say at least 7-8 years. Yeah. They operate in a very interesting space, API related, so in the integration space. Integration, to most people probably nowadays, when they think about integration, they think about Hitch and Zapier, but MuleSoft operates in a different side of the market, like what most people consider the more sophisticated and boring side of the market, which is big companies. They have giant data warehouses, giant accounting systems, and they need to put everything together. So they sell these services to these larger companies. This is basically what Mulesoft does. Obviously, they have different operations in different parts of the API space as well. But basically, this is the core of it. One very interesting aspect about Mulesoft that most people probably know the word is RAML. Mm-hmm. So RAML, which is used to document APIs in a machine readable format, was created by Mulesoft as well.
And for those that haven't heard of RAML so much, it's similar to Swagger or OpenAPI. It's obviously a different format, but it was trying to achieve a similar outcome, correct?
Exactly. So RAML is one of the existing machine readable formats, mm-hmm. Exactly as you said, with the same purpose of Swagger, OpenAPI, or API Blueprint, if you want. And yeah, that's basically, they've created it at the time they've created it. Was just because they were dealing with a lot of internal integrations, and they wanted to create a common language between those APIs to be able to integrate them in a better way.
And from my understanding, we know the API space of often bringing together disparate systems, so separate mm-hmm. products. From Mule has really been exceptional at bringing together organizations like Coca-Cola that would have thousands of internal systems. Yep. So it's internal data management as well as working with external systems, and they've been a real pioneer of doing that internal piece, right, as well as the external piece.
Right. Yeah. It's between internal systems, and it's like bridging the gap between the systems that work inside big companies and other systems. So an example would be like a procurement system or an accounting system. When you have a large number of other companies that have to deal with your internal system, someone needs to create that piece of software that will help those companies integrate things together.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess our summary is these guys have pioneered the technology side in terms of things like RAML and actually working on technology that can help these pieces scale, but also pioneered getting into the very the largest businesses in the world, mm-hmm. and facilitating their data management to a degree. So that's great for the general tech market, interesting for our space, the API and the integrations world.
Very interesting.
But what I want to move on to now is, in the integration space, there's always discussion of, well, not just integration of APIs, of developer evangelism, right, support, and Kin Lane was discussing this week in one of his blog posts, how do people manage the relationship between the two? I'm sure many businesses have slightly different constructs of how these interact. How do you see the two entities? What is each entity, and how do you classically see them interact for a business?
Yeah, well, in the first place, API, we're talking here about API support and DevRel, right? Yeah. Developer relations. So in the first case, API support, the way I see it, a big part of it is about developers. Yeah. But some part of it is not about developers at all. So let's first focus on the developer side. What I see happening is that more and more, developer relationship people will more and more have also the role of supporting the API. Yeah. So you have developers that are trying to use the API, and suddenly the only point of contact they have with the company is someone from developer relations. So that's kind of obvious that they're going to get in touch with those people and they're going to ask questions. And those people will have to try to answer the best they can. So those questions will never get into any sort of support team, basically. But the other side of it, which I think is interesting, and it's growing more and more, is that there are more people, more API consumers that are not developers that will also need support. So we're talking here about product owners, people that are actually making decisions or deciding which APIs to use. And a good example of this is, imagine that for some reason an integration that you have with some API stops working, and it's because of rate limiting. So who will deal with that? Is it the developer that built the integration? Is it some product owner that will have to understand that they will have to change to another subscription plan with the API? Is it someone else inside the company?
Someone in procurement or something?
Someone in procurement. Who is going to support that specific questions from the API side? Is it some DevRel talking to the developer, or someone else? So we're seeing, kind of a gap here, if you want, in these support activities. But I believe things are going, in the right direction, and I believe more and more the right people inside companies, they will deal with these specific activities.
Okay. So to really simplify it down, some people see DevRel as developer marketing.
Right.
They didn't want to use the marketing name because developers don't want to be marketed to. Does that depend on how the company uses the function? Is DeveloperRel just developer marketing by another name?
Well, I think that simplifies a lot. As you said, I see it, a little bit beyond marketing, the usual marketing activity. I see it more as a way to build trust, creating these relationships and building trust over time. If you want to call that marketing, that's fine. But I believe it's a little bit beyond the marketing itself.
So, and that's also why another common term is developer evangelism. So the evangelism relations, better define it than the marketing piece.
Right.
Yeah. And obviously, as a business, we're focused on developer support, helping businesses support that piece. So it's interesting to see how this debate is evolving, and we look forward to your input around this as well. So if you have any questions around or opinions around how you see developer support and developer relations interacting and where you see them moving, we'd love to hear from you. And also, I'm sure Kin would as well. He's raised this same question this week. So we want to continue the conversation with you. We'll be doing more API chats soon. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.